Star Trek, Tridimensional Chess, How to Play. The rules are the same as regular chess except for these changes. For a refresher of those rules, check out this video. The bottom level board is White's board, and the top level is Black's board. The middle level is the neutral board. The three levels are suspended one above the other and horizontally offset by half their width, so that half of the squares on any board are directly over or under half of the squares on the next level above or below it. This layout may not always be visually perfectly achieved, but this is how they officially overlap. You can remember that squares line up by color. The small movable platforms are called attack boards. The attack boards are placed on the rear pin positions of the white and black boards, oriented so that the corner colors match, indicating which squares overlap. Set up White's pawns on the second row of both their main board and attack boards. On White's main board, on the closest row, set up Knight, Bishop, Bishop, Knight. On the attack boards, place Rooks on the rear outer corners, the Queen on its matching color, and the King on the other. Mirror this setup for Black. On your turn, instead of moving a piece, you may move an attack board. To move an attack board, it must be occupied by exactly one piece. Whichever player's piece occupies the attack board, that player has the ability to move it. An attack board can move to another pin on the same row or column of its current board, or it can move vertically to a pin on a board above or below it. When moving vertically, it moves to the closest pin. If there is a tie for the closest pin, then you may pick which pin to move to. When you move an attack board, you may also rotate it 180 degrees if you want. If you do, be sure that the overlapping colors from the boards above and below it still match. Whatever piece is on it rotates with the board. You may not move an attack board to the same pin as another attack board, and you may not rotate an attack board without moving it to another pin. All pieces have their normal chess movement with the following considerations. When moving a piece laterally along the horizontal plane of a board, the squares located directly above or below each square are considered to be in the same position on a single horizontal plane. It is as if you are above, looking down, and treating all the individual boards as one single chessboard. In this view, some of the squares would be allowed to hold multiple pieces simultaneously. Flip the view back to 3 dimensions, and you can see how this is possible because of the vertically overlapping boards. Typically, squares will only have 2 boards overlapping. However, due to the moving location of attack boards, you can have up to 4 boards overlapping. The number of overlapping squares determines how many pieces can share that square within the vertical space. A piece may change levels so long as the horizontal path of that piece's normal move is legal, regardless of its vertical movement. To move a piece to a different level, that piece must first move along its horizontal path one square at a time. At any point on the path, the piece may be repositioned to an unoccupied square above or below the very next square on the path. Then the horizontal move continues, and this process repeats until the desired destination square is reached. Pieces may not change boards while staying on the same square. They must move horizontally as well. A piece may leave the edge of a board if there is an unoccupied square above or below the imaginary void square the piece is moving to. Move that piece to that physical square, then you may continue its horizontal move. Pieces may not travel into the void beyond that next single square. You must always calculate the path of a movement one square at a time following these movement rules. Once a piece leaves a level, it may not return to that same level in the same move. A rook can travel up multiple boards in a single move in a very specific way, so as to dodge several pieces that are in the way. If there is a wall of pieces on the same vertical square blocking the path, pieces may not travel into the void to dodge it. Knights are one of the exceptions. They are allowed to jump through the void so long as they land on a physical square. The second exception is that queens and rooks are allowed to travel across void space from one attack board to another attack board. This type of move is only allowed over the void. You are allowed to capture an opponent's piece that is on a square on any board level you can move to. Pawns are allowed to capture diagonally across levels. Pawns that start the game on your attack boards still have their double step move option unless the attack board moves. Then they lose it. A pawn that moves to the start position of another pawn also loses their double step move option. Pawns may not travel on an attack board backwards. A pawn may move an attack board sideways so that their forward movement stays the same, but they may not move an attack board sideways while rotating it 180 degrees. Pawns promote when they reach the back row of your opponent's main board, or if they reach the back square of an attack board that is on your opponent's rear pin. A pawn still promotes if it is in the correct position during an attack board move. En passant is allowed like normal across levels. It does not matter which level your opponent's pawn moves to. If that pawn double steps past a square your pawn could capture, you can use en passant, picking which level your piece ends on. You are allowed to castle under the normal conditions. To castle kingside, swap the positions of your rook and king. To castle queenside, move your king adjacent to your rook, then move the rook to the square where your king started. You are not allowed to castle on your first turn. The first player to checkmate their opponent wins.